For centuries, the story of Noah's Ark has been a cornerstone of faith, a parable of divine judgment and salvation. But what if it wasn't a myth? What if the massive vessel described in the book of Genesis wasn't just a story but a historical artifact, hiding in plain sight? High in the rugged volcanic terrain of eastern Turkey, near the peak of Greater Mount Ararat, a team of international scientists has made a discovery that is less about proving a biblical tale and more about rewriting the timeline of human civilization. What they found beneath the ice and rubble does not just confirm the existence of an ancient ship, it suggests something far more unsettling about our past and our future. The initial radar scans were promising, but when the drills broke through the permafrost and the cameras went into the void, the world held its breath. They were looking for wood. They found something else entirely. The expedition, led by Dr. Elif Demir of Istanbul University and geophysicist Dr. James Holloway from the University of Cambridge, was not a faith-based mission. It was a geological survey funded by a consortium of European scientific bodies to study anomalous magnetic readings in the ARK mountain complex. In late 2023, while using high-resolution LiDAR light detection and ranging to map tectonic fault lines, Holloway's team noticed a distinct, ship-like shape buried under 40 feet of glacial ice and volcanic rock. The formation was approximately 150 meters long, astonishingly close to the 300-cubit length described in ancient texts. However, unlike the famous Darupanar Formation, a natural rock feature, this site was deeper, higher up the mountain, and only accessible via drone reconnaissance. It was the internal density scans that triggered the emergency funding. Ground-penetrating radar GPR revealed not just a hull, but internal compartmentalization, a series of empty spaces, ramps, and partitions that suggested advanced naval architecture. Nature does not create 90-degree angles over 150 meters, Dr. Holloway stated in a leaked internal memo. We are looking at a structure. The excavation, which began in the summer of 2024, was a logistical nightmare. The altitude and political sensitivity of the Turkish border region required military escorts. When the team finally melted a borehole through the ice cap and lowered a fiber optic camera, the initial footage was grainy and dark. But as the robotic lens adjusted to the lightless environment, the image stabilized. The camera was inside a large dry chamber. The walls were not made of petrified wood as expected. Instead, they were coated in a black vitrified residue, a substance that looked like glass. Dr. Miriam Schwartz, a material scientist brought in from Berlin, was the first to analyze the spectral data. "This isn't burning," she whispered during the live feed to Mission Control. "This is vitrification caused by extreme heat, possibly plasma. The temperature required to turn stone and organic matter into this glass is higher than anything achievable in the ancient world. We are talking about thousands of degrees Celsius, focused into a confined space." The terror began to set in when the Geiger counters started clicking. The black glass was slightly radioactive, not enough to kill a human immediately, but enough to indicate the presence of isotopes that should not exist naturally in that region. The team pulled back, assuming they had found a Cold War-era missile silo or a forgotten nuclear test site. But carbon dating of organic residue trapped beneath the glass layer told a different story. The samples dated to approximately 4,800 BCE, the exact time frame of the Younger Dryas extinction event, a mysterious rapid cooling period that wiped out megafauna and early human settlements. The coincidence was too stark to ignore. Dr. Holloway convened a private video call with a select group of anthropologists and mythologists. His question was simple. What if the story of the flood wasn't about water? What if the flood was a metaphor for a fire from the sky? As the team drilled deeper, they bypassed the upper living quarters and descended into the lowest deck of the vessel. This is where the biblical narrative places the storage of animals. But the visual evidence was horrifying. The camera revealed row after row of terracotta vessels, large, sealed urns, each about 6 feet in diameter. They were not cages. They were storage units. Using a specialized robotic arm, the scientists breached one of the urns. Inside, They did not find bones or straw. They found a dark, viscous oil and a collection of organic matter that had been preserved in an anaerobic, sterile environment. Genetic sequencing was performed on-site using a portable nanopore sequencer. The results crashed the computer 3 times. When the data finally resolved, Dr. Schwartz nearly fainted. The DNA in the urn was not from any known animal species on Earth. It contained base pairs that suggested extreme hybridization, genes from mammals, reptiles, and what appeared to be non-human primates, twisted together in configurations that had no evolutionary precedent. The media, which had been kept at bay by a news blackout, finally caught wind of the story when a Turkish soldier leaked a single photograph of the black glass corridor. The headline, "Noah's Ark Found," swept the globe within hours. But the truth was far stranger than the news anchors could articulate. Inside the command center at the base of the mountain, the scientists were facing an existential crisis. They had discovered what appeared to be a genetic ark, but it was not filled with 2 of every creature. It was filled with the failures of a pre-flood world. The terracotta urns contained the remnants of a biological engineering project gone wrong. The giants and Nephilim spoken of in the Book of Enoch and Genesis might not have been mythological demigods, but the products of a sophisticated ancient biotechnology that existed before the cataclysm. The most terrifying find was yet to come. At the very center of the vessel, shielded by a hull that was 10 feet thick, lay the navigation room. Unlike the dark vitrified exterior, this room was lined with a honeycomb of crystalline structures. Dr. Holloway theorized that these crystals were a form of data storage or energy conduction. In the center of the room, mounted on a pedestal of basalt, was a map, not a map of the stars, as one might expect from ancient mariners, but a geological map of the Earth before the flood. The continents were arranged differently. The Mediterranean was a fertile valley, the Black Sea was a freshwater lake, and in the center of the map, marked with a crimson residue, was the location of the vessel itself. The implication was clear: the builders of this ship knew the flood was coming because they had the technology to see the impact event, likely a fragmenting comet, heading toward Earth. But why did the inside of the ship look like a war zone? Why the vitrification? The team pieced together a chilling hypothesis. The vessel had not landed gently. It had been shot down. The radioactive scorch marks on the interior walls suggest that the ship was struck by a directed energy weapon or a massive plasma discharge after it landed on the mountain. This implies that the survivors of the flood, the alleged family of Noah, were not welcomed by a pristine new world. They were hunted. The Ark was not a lifeboat. It was a prison transport, or perhaps a vault, fleeing a global conflict that utilized weapons we only began to develop in the 20th century. The wickedness of man that necessitated the flood might not have been simple sin, but the misuse of genetic and atomic power. The Turkish government, fearing a religious schism and potential security risks, sealed the site in early 2025. The international scientific community is now divided into 2 camps: those who believe the findings prove the ancient astronaut theory, and those who insist the samples must have been contaminated by modern industrial waste. However, Dr. Holloway stands by his data. In a final interview before being placed under a confidentiality order by the Cambridge University Press Office, he uttered the words that now haunt the archaeological world. "We have found the Ark, but we were wrong about who built it. It wasn't a primitive man following the orders of a ghost. It was a civilization trying to survive the wrath of a planet. The terrifying truth is that history is cyclical. The ice is melting again. The seas are rising, and we are looking at the blueprints for survival. The question is, are we smart enough to read them before it's too late?" The implications of the discovery extend far beyond theology. The vitrified walls suggest a level of heat control that rivals our own industrial capabilities. The genetic mixing in the urns suggests a dark age of bioengineering that led to a societal collapse. If the scientists are correct, then humanity did not slowly evolve from hunter-gatherers into farmers. Instead, we devolved. The Stone Age was a reset. The people who emerged from the Ark were not the founders of a new race. They were the refugees of a high-tech apocalypse, carrying with them only the stories, which turned into myths, and the terror of what they had left behind. As the world debates the authenticity of the site, the satellite imagery continues to capture the slow melt of the Ararat Glacier. What else is buried up there? And if the Ark was a weaponized vessel, are there others? For now, the mountain keeps its secret, but the soil and the glass have spoken. The end of the last ice age was not a natural event, it was a war, and the Ark is the smoking gun.